Alright, so I literally just finished Spider-Man probably. I cooked some lunch and ate it probably half an hour ago. Actually, 20 minutes ago, looking at the time. And I am fucking torn. I won't get into spoilers yet, but I'll get into them later on and I'll give you a warning if I'm going to spoil anything so you don't have to fucking see the spoilers. So, first off, the game, okay, straight up the bat, I played it on PlayStation 4, so this might be my fault. I couldn't fucking order a PS5. I'm sorry. Australia sucks dick, and pre-order sold out in 1 hour. So, fuck you, PlayStation. But straight off the bat, the graphics didn't impress me at all. It wasn't amazing. From what I heard and read the reviews, people saying, "Wow, amazing graphics, the snow particles, this, and that." And maybe because I'm biased, because my expectations were set to a certain standard. It didn't wow me. It was average. Yeah, nothing was amazing. There were cool effects in the game, like the electricity and the power moves and things like that. But the graphics on its own, average. Nothing special. So yeah, maybe that's my fault for PS4, but yeah, nothing. PS4 Pro, by the way, in case fucking for the nerds out there. So the story itself, in terms of its pacing, it was like a 7 to 8 hour game. I got through it pretty quickly. I actually didn't like parts of the story. I felt like I wanted a little bit more depth and with more of the character development scenes, some of them were really emotional and I felt a little bit rushed, while other sections felt really slow and drained out. And I wanted to reach my phone just to, because I was bored, literally. I wanted to check my messages. I was like, oh, this is draining on a little bit. I'm not that interested. I don't want to fucking power up this another electrical wall thing that you have to do a fucking 100 times in this game. Felt a bit mundane and repetitive at certain points. For a fucking 7 to 8 hour game, it felt like a 14-hour game, which is not a good thing. What else? So overall, yeah, I would have liked the emotional parts and character reveals, a bit more building up on Spider-Man's relationships with other characters. Yeah, I think it needed a little bit more of that. So maybe if they made it even like an extra hour-long game, just to add an extra few minutes to each scene, would have helped it a lot more. The controls, so the PS4 controller, and moving fight scenes and swinging through the city, it felt really smooth and fluid. And it was really enjoyable. I didn't even use fast travel once throughout the game. I swung to every mission, and even for a little bit, I just swung around the city just to have fun. It was really smooth and worked really well. The interesting thing, because this is Miles Morales, is a new Spider-Man. The way he swung through the city and some of the fight animations and stuff were not smooth. So you could really tell that he was new to being Spider-Man, which is a really nice addition that they added to this game. He's not a perfect superhero, and they made that pretty clear, which is cool. So the power itself, the Venom Punch is probably the main move you're going to use, which was really fun to use. Felt like fucking Thor at some points, like a god. You are a superhero, so I guess it makes sense, but you felt super OP. You can punch someone, they go flying across the fucking town. Really cool. Invisibility I used quite a bit in the early stages, but later on it becomes irrelevant, so I don't really like that power, how it was kind of useless to a certain degree. It was pretty weird, maybe because the game was very short. Might be more useful in side missions, but we'll touch on that a bit later. From the get-go, so story-wise, as well, I liked how Spider-Man had to earn the city's respect. They kind of, whenever he turned up to a mission, they were like, oh, where's the real Spider-Man? We wanted the actual one. But throughout the game, he slowly builds respect from the people, which is pretty cool. And I guess it comes with him having more confidence in himself as a character, which they kind of touched on a little bit. I did come into some bugs throughout the game. Sometimes the camera angle would not be on the character at all because I was moving around, punching from person to person. Didn't kind of keep up with where Spider-Man was. And sometimes when I loaded it in, I'll just be a floating head, which was pretty fucking weird. Um, but not. Oh, I did get stuck once. I got stuck inside another character and I couldn't get out of it, so I had to restart the game. But luckily, there were a lot of saves in this game. This is one thing the game is good at. It has a lot of auto saves, so if something does go wrong, you don't have to repeat anything. So yeah, even though there are some bugs, nothing groundbreaking. And one time it did happen, and it was an easy fix. I was worried at first I'd have to replay 5 minutes of this walking, talking scene, and some other bullshit. But no, which was good to see. Um, the whole game was pretty easy overall. I didn't die once. Yeah, the boss fights were not challenging. I didn't find the game difficult at all. And the final boss was the easiest boss of all the bosses, from my experience. Maybe because I had more abilities and things like that. But I found it really disappointing that the last boss was the easiest boss in the whole fucking game. Again, that's subjective. That's my experience. So you might find it more challenging. But yeah, for me, it was the easiest boss in the game. And to be a final boss and to not struggle once is pretty shit. Um, okay, so in the story for the side missions, um, the side missions. Okay, so first off, there's this thing called the Spider-Man app, which I think was a nice addition, where you can view Spider-Man side missions and you can select which one you want to do. Sometimes you are forced to do side missions before the next main mission unlocks, but you can also do side missions whenever you want in your free time to get more points, level up your character, and things like that. Um, the side missions themselves were pretty dull. They lacked depth and pretty boring. There were a few that were interesting. One with a fire, building on fire, and there was another one, the very first one that I did, which was pretty. It was fun, but then, yeah, they're a bit repetitive and they don't add anything to the story, which is why they're a side mission. But they were boring. They weren't enjoyable. So I didn't do a lot of side missions personally, just because they weren't fun. I'm not one of those people who want to 100% a game, and I'm not going to grind. I have better things to do with my life than to just sit there and play repetitive, boring, mundane shit. So, yeah. The story overall, the main story, it was a pretty generic story. It was predictable, and there was nothing that wowed me until the very end. It fucking got me at the end, and I'll talk about that in the spoiler section. But from beginning to 95% of the main story, it was predictable, generic. The villain was a generic fucking businessman. The way they revealed the villains was pretty generic, stereotypical in superheroes. But it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It was fun and enjoyable, but it is predictable and you can see it coming from a mile away. The music itself in the game was one of its highlights for me. It was amazing. I loved every single song. The beats were cool, flying through the city, and this track comes on. Even from the intro, it's just, that's my kind of music. And it was enjoyable with the fight scenes and everything. Also, the podcast was a good addition. I didn't expect it to be so consistent. And I just remembered the funniest part of this game is when you're on a phone call with another character. And if you do any activity, he hangs up the phone and then it goes back to oh, sorry, I was doing this. What were you talking about? And that happened, like, I heard the same lines 3 times in a row because the objectives of the missions were like 10 seconds apart, so he didn't get to finish what he was saying. So the writing just repeated itself, which was only happened once, but I found it pretty funny. If it happened a lot, it probably would be very annoying, but once I can let it go. It's cool. But yeah, the music itself in the podcast edition was pretty solid. So before I jump into spoilers, I'll give this a rating. But I gave. Okay, I'm sitting at a 7 out of 10 just because of the price of the game, everything it had to offer. I'm not going to probably remember it. I'm not going to play it again. I finished it. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to do the side missions. They don't interest me at all. The story was predictable, and the pacing just didn't sit right with me. There was nothing. A 7-hour game, like, you're not going to have much depth, and to have some parts feel long in such a short game is not a good thing. To me, yeah, it felt like a 14-hour game, but I got it done in 7 hours, so it didn't hit the mark. That's not because there was so much to fucking do in the game. It was because some parts dragged, and the parts where they were emotional and had good, they revealed important information. They were very short, so that's why it's a 7 out of 10. Hate me, whatever. I don't care. and I live in Australia. Games here when they release are $100 and for a 7-hour game, to be $100 is not good. I would not recommend anyone buys it for that price. On one day release at JB Hi-Fi, you normally can get it a bit cheaper, so I got mine for $79. But even then, I think that's way too much for what this game is and what it has to offer. I feel like because it doesn't change much from the original Spider-Man that came out ages ago, I feel like this should have just been a $40 DLC. To have it as a full whole new game for that cost, just I can't see how they justify it to the consumer. I can see how they changed a lot of things to make it PS5 accessible. They changed a lot of the graphics and how they ran the game to make it more optimal. But I think they would have achieved the goal they wanted in terms of the story and the outcome just as well in a $40 DLC for Australia, $40, which would have been half the fucking price. So yeah, 7 out of 10. I'm going to jump into the spoilers. So if you don't want to listen to anything important or be spoiled, click off now. 7 out of 10. Don't buy it yet. Get it when it's on sale. That's my recommendation. So 3, 2, 1, spoiler time. All right. So I didn't expect a Spider-Man game to do this to me, but I fucking cried at the end. Like, not bawling my eyes out, but I got tears running down my cheeks at the end of this game when Finn picked him up and flew up to the sky, and she died presumably. I got teary. I got teary in that talking scene. I got teary when the explosion happened. It was like a 10-second cutscene, and yeah, it hit me in the fucking heart. Don't know why. Which is, I guess, for a 7-hour game, for that to do that to me is pretty fucking good. Which made my rating a little bit higher than I initially was going to do. Yeah, and the final scene kind of reminded me a bit of Mass Effect when he was walking towards the electrical thing and drained it. Slow walking. I hate that mechanic. No game should force you to fucking slowly walk. Get rid of it. It does my head in. Yeah, the friends of Spider-Man, in terms of more characters, they're kind of bland besides Finn, and the justification that Finn had for how do I word this? Okay, so first off, they were friends. Then she kind of didn't trust him, and she completely flicked the switch and fucking hated him, started beating him up to fucking nothing. It didn't justify enough to me why she broke the family friendship. Like they were like brothers and sisters. This was their relationship, and just like that, she decided to beat him up and fucking destroy him. For me, they didn't do enough to justify that flick of the switch. Like, why did she become just a fucking villain and had no feelings for him at all? It didn't do it enough for me. That's probably because the game was so short and they rushed a lot of those kind of bits. So I feel like they needed to build up the case a little bit more. I get it, she broke his trust, but she was lying to him too. She didn't say that who she was working for beforehand or what she was doing. Her motives were hidden from fucking Miles. So she did the exact same thing that he did to her. So it's a bit hypocritical. It didn't hit home for me. Those are kind of the things I wanted to touch on in terms of spoilers. The uncle as well. Yeah, they didn't really go into too much depth with the uncle. They did a little bit more than with Finn, so I kind of understood his mindset and where he was coming from a little bit more. But again, I would have liked them to just develop that relationship a little bit further. Not as much as I wanted with Finn. They need to do a lot more work with that, but with the uncle, just maybe one more extra mission or scene just to build upon that relationship. So overall, it's a fun game. I enjoyed the whole experience. I'd recommend it if it was cheaper, as I said. $40 DLC, 100% get it. $100 to $80 for a brand new game. Wait till it's on sale. Don't get it yet. But 7 out of 10. Do what you want. Leave what you thought of the game in the comments below if you played it and if you have any more questions. But for now, peace out and goodbye.